Senator John Kerry says the Senate will pass climate legislation this session and that the climate bill will be bold. Kerry made this prediction to students at George Washington University during a speech on the national security implications of climate change. Clean Sky's Lee Patrick Sullivan was there, and Lee, Kerry sounds very optimistic.
He did indeed, Susan. Senator Kerry took questions after his speech, and it was during the Q&A when he said he expects to have a draft version of the climate bill in the next 2 weeks. As for what's in the bill, the senator wouldn't go into detail, saying there are still ongoing negotiations, but he did say there would be an attention given to make sure speculators don't artificially inflate a cap-and-trade market.
We're looking at ways to strengthen the marketplace transparency and accountability. We don't want to have an Enron speculation or the kind of oil speculation people have had. We want that marketplace to be really clean and clear and transparent and accountable to the American people. And I think there are ways we can guarantee that. So there's some things we're doing that we think will strengthen it in the end. We're looking at obviously ways to try to attract, we got to get 60 votes. So we got to sort of patch together a coalition in a way that helps us do that. But it will, we want to get the job done. We're going to try and set a goal that's realistic about reductions in emissions, and we're going to put a mechanism in place that creates jobs.
Kerry also said any cap-and-trade legislation will be phased in over time to allow industry to adjust. Now, I had the opportunity to ask the senator if the Senate and the State Department are working together ahead of the Copenhagen climate talks to make sure that there isn't a repeat of Kyoto. As you remember, the State Department agreed to provisions in the Kyoto Protocol only to have a rare moment of bipartisanship in the Senate, where the treaty was struck down by a vote of 95-0.
Well, we're working very closely. I talk periodically with Todd Stern. I've been part of those discussions with their counterparts from other countries. And we are in touch with Carol Browner in the White House and working very closely on all of these issues. So the answer is we're going to obviously do our utmost, and the Senate process is working diligently to try to avoid the kind of problem that we had with Kyoto. We meet every single week, once a week, in the Foreign Relations Committee room in the Capitol. Senator Boxer, myself, presiding, with 20 plus senators to work through this process. And that will reach a new level of intensity next week, next Tuesday, when we meet for the first time since the break, with the realization that we're really cobbling the bill together now, and this is the moment that counts.
Now, Kerry also said the Copenhagen talks don't have to solve climate change. In fact, he doubts there will be an emission reduction agreement strong enough to reverse the slowdown or slow down the effects of global warming. But he does see a global agreement spurring innovation. And the senator says technology, not tariffs, will eventually save the planet.
I know we're not going to achieve in Copenhagen what the science that I described at the very beginning says we ought to. I understand that, and so do you. But if we get started, it'll be, I think that's okay. Because nobody has the ability to predict what happens when a government, or governments plural, set a goal, a task, and they all hew to it. And the businesses have a certainty as to what their outlays are, and so the marketplace begins to move in that direction. And because of our entrepreneurial, creative skill in the marketplace, I believe that once we set that goal, everybody is going to be stunned by how rapidly things begin to happen.
Now, the senator went on to joke with the students at George Washington University that if past American entrepreneurs are an example, climate change will most likely be solved by a new source of energy developed by a college dropout.
Lee, did Senator Kerry talk about the health care debate and if it's taking any of the wind out of the sails of the climate talks?
Yes, Susan, he did talk about that, and he says that the Senate is capable of taking on more than one issue at a time. He even looked at the health care debate as a positive, saying if reform does get passed, it will show senators what can be achieved when they flex their legislative muscles.
Well, some others say if he passes that, gets health care passed, he may be using up too many of his brownie points and may not get energy passed, so we'll have to see. Lee Patrick Sullivan, thank you.